India's participation in Russia's military exercises and its purchase of Russian oil stand in the way of closer ties.
Help us, but first obey us. Be our friend, but also be our intern. Hello and welcome to Global News Factory. I am your host, Vikrant. Today's roast is Kaja Kallas, and yes, the European economy too, because they come as a combo meal. Okay, dead economies. I don't say it for drama, I say it because after Europe sanctioned away cheap Russian energy, the lights dimmed and the bills exploded. Industry fled, people counted pennies. And then the same EU turns around and lectures India about who we train with and who we buy from. Ma'am, your house is on fire. Stop telling us where to store our water. Kallas says the EU wants deeper ties with India, but then swings the hammer. Watch this.
And its purchase of Russian oil stand in the way of closer ties. Because ultimately our partnership is not only about trade but also about defending rules-based international order. Our negotiations will address these challenges.
That is the funniest hostage note I have heard all month. Help us, but first obey us. Be our friend, but also be our intern. India does not do internships in geopolitics. We do autonomy, we do balance, we do what works. Let's keep it simple. India trains everywhere. We do ZAPAD with Russia and Belarus. We do Malabar with US and Japan. We fly Rafales, we fly Sukhoi 30s, we buy S-400s. We build our own missiles and radars. It is not confusion, it is competence. Multiple partners, one compass, and that compass has India on it, not Brussels. Then Kallas tried history. She wondered aloud if it is possible to completely decouple India from Russia. Watch this.
Whether it's possible to completely decouple India from Russia, considering their history as well, I don't think we have illusions.
The fact that she even needs to consider it tells you everything. History is not a garnish you sprinkle on a press conference. India-Russia ties were forged when Europe was busy lecturing and America was busy sanctioning. We stood through wars, oil shocks, and supply droughts together. You don't erase that with a Brussels frown. And speaking of history, Kallas once called it news that Russia and China were among the victors over Nazis and fascists. News! The Soviet Union lost more than 20 million lives, and somehow that is a surprise. That is not a gaffe, that is a blackout. Let's talk economics without big words. Europe sanctioned Russian energy and now buys expensive freedom gas from Uncle Sam with a smile. Overpriced gas, overpriced weapons, overpriced sermons. US sells, EU pays, factories cry, voters grumble. And in the middle of all that, Kallas points at India and says, why ZAPAD? Because we like cheap barrels and stable partners, because we live in the real world, not in a panel discussion. She says she also called India's foreign minister to complain about exercises and oil. Brave move. See, I would have paid to hear that call. Jaishankar must have poured his tea, smiled, and replied in that calm tone, we will do what is in India's interest.
Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems. But the world's problems are not Europe's problems. But the world's problems are not Europe's problems.
Translation? Thank you for your feelings. Our policy is not a feelings factory. If you want influence, bring value, not volume. Here is the full picture you would not see in op-eds. EU is tired, indebted, and squeezed by its own choices. US is fleecing Europe for gas and guns, while preaching unity. BRICS is rising on trade that actually delivers. India stands in the middle and does what a grown up does: buy smart, trains wide, and says no to guilt traps. We don't need permission slips, we don't need mood music, we need results. Kallas says ZAPAD is an existential threat.
I mean, if you want closer ties with us, then why participate in exercises that are existential threat to us? So to be very clear in this message is that we are not taking this lightly.
No, dear EU thug, empty factories are actual threat. Energy poverty is an actual threat. Thinking you can bully India while buying American LNG at luxury prices is an actual threat. Threat to your credibility. If you want closer ties, try respect, try reciprocity, try reading the chapter on the Eastern Front before you hold the mic. And to Kallas, a parting gift. History is not news, sovereignty is not negotiable, India is not your pupil. Adjust tone, bring value, and remember who actually kept Europe's lights on for decades. Cheap energy from the East, not lectures from the West. And then Ursula arrived with a magic broom and unveiled the grand plan. We will speed up phasing out Russian fossil imports. Translation: I am gasping for air, so I will cut my oxygen supply. Brilliant. If irony paid taxes, Brussels would be able to balance a budget, finally. Europe sanctioned away cheap energy and now acts shocked that factories are leaving and bills look like ransom notes. And the fix? More of the thing that broke us. You cannot call that a pivot, you call that a spiral. And then came the headline that made coffee spray across screens. This is DW's headline, by the way. It's on your screen. EU's new strategy to lure India away from Russia's orbit. With what exactly? A defense stockpile that needs a GoFundMe? A growth rate that needs CPR? Please. And Ursula said the quiet part out loud. She wants trade deals with India to reduce dependencies because higher US tariffs are squeezing the EU. So it is not a masterstroke to woo India, it is a lifeboat. We are sinking India, please climb in and row. That is the pitch. That is the romance. That is the partnership of equals with a hat in its hand. Let me make it simple. The EU did not do India a favor by not sanctioning us for buying Russian oil. It is like a fish bragging that it did a favor to water by not jumping onto sand. See, Europe needs India more than India needs Europe. Right now we are the market that is young, big, and moving. We are not a trophy on a Brussels shelf. We are a partner on our terms. Talk to us like adults or don't talk at all. And my message to DW propagandists is this. Here is a free fix for you. The headline should be this: EU's new strategy to stay afloat. Better, honest, no fairy dust, because the real lure for India is not flatter words, it is better deals, lower non-tariff barriers, respect for pharma, real access, timelines that don't age like wine. Deliver that and India listens. Ursula's broom cannot sweep away physics. Energy must be cheap, steady, and near. You cannot phase out your lungs and call it a marathon. You cannot lecture India on partners while begging India to be your backup battery. You cannot claim master strokes while the only stroke we see is a self-inflicted one. Let's talk about Macron now. The man who wants to rule Europe, fix Africa, lecture India, save Ukraine, tame tariffs, and now prove his wife is a woman. Global leadership but with lab reports. Liberté, égalité, DNA testé. This is peak Paris performance art. The world is a mess, wars, sanctions, broken supply chains, and the Elysee Palace is out here prepping scientific evidence for a US court about the First Lady's gender. Not policy, not prices, not pensions, evidence. Next week, carbon dating the wedding album. The week after, peer-reviewed selfies. Let's be grown-ups. Whatever people think about their age gap or their old teacher-pupil story, here is the punchline. Only a government drowning in optics would turn gossip into a state project. If you are confident, ignore it. If you are insecure, litigate it. And in the end, let's move towards Australia. Dear Australia, pick a lane. You cannot poke the dragon at breakfast and pitch a business plan by lunch. Victoria, the state, is on a debt treadmill. The belt is speeding up, the shoes are cheap, investors are walking to other states. Taxes keep climbing, costs keep biting. The big dream? A $34 billion suburban rail loop that looks less like a loop and more like a noose around the budget's neck. And now the premier flies to Beijing with a tin cup and a PowerPoint. Dear China, please fund our white elephant. We promise it is eco-friendly. Meanwhile, Canberra cosplays as the sheriff of the Taiwan Strait. A warship sails through, the press office flexes, Uncle Sam claps like a proud parent at a school play. Then, when the curtain drops, Australia's biggest trading partner is still China. The export receipts still say made for China, and Victoria is still knocking on the same door. Provoke at sea, pitch on land. That is your national brand now? It is giving split personality with a trade deficit. Now I know, foreign policy is federal, not state. Cute line. But China does not print two flags on your invoices. The world sees one Australia. Let's talk self-respect. You don't lecture your banker and then ask for an overdraft. Either be a fearless hawk and accept the economic pain, or be a calm trader and stop filming yourself doing laps in the Taiwan Strait for likes. This current model is the worst of both worlds. You get the diplomatic migraine and the fiscal hangover. Here is the bigger joke. Australia keeps calling China a systemic challenge. Systemic challenge at breakfast and then calling it an investor by night. The dragon has a better memory than Canberra. It hears the sermon, it sees the ship, it watches the premier arrive with the spreadsheet. If you want to be serious, be consistent. If the national line is compete, de-risk, diversify, then stop staging naval TikToks just to impress DC. Start building speed permits, cut red tapes with scissors, not slogans. Build local supply chains that do not fall apart at the first whiff of geopolitics. And then raise money from partners who are not also the weekly villain in your press briefings. If you want China's money, show respect without the performative scowls. Adults can disagree at sea and still do the math on land. Drop the moral megaphone, pick up a term sheet. Beijing does not need your flattery, it needs clarity. Are you a reliable counterparty or a headline factory? Because investors, they hate soap operas, they like returns. And that is all for now. Thank you very much for being with me. You're watching GNF.